we'll hit that. All right. Hello, my name is Mike Pennacchi, owner of Network Protocol Specialist here in Seattle, Washington. Now, I got the NetAlly shirt on. As you know, I do a lot of training for NetAlly. In fact, I've been doing training on the LinkRunner G2 since it first came out. And, I started looking at how long it's been since we did any sort of online training on this. And I thought, we need to get something on the schedule and get out there and make sure that everybody is getting the most out of their LinkRunner G2, because this is such a powerful piece of equipment. And the thing that drives me nuts is when we see this type of equipment sitting on a shelf. I can't tell you how many times I've gone out to customer sites and I've said, where's that piece of test equipment? They open some drawer and they pull it out and they haven't really used it. And then they say, we're really not happy with this. Well, that's because you're not using it. I will tell you that people that use tools on a regular basis, they know how to use those tools. They become dependent on those tools. Those tools become an integral part of their business processes. And that is when they buy more, when they're happy with the tools. Now, there are bad tools out there, but I have found that for a lot of the things I need to do with this, it does a pretty darn good job. So I have the Q&A window open. I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. I know a few people have commented on the chat in there, and that's great. But if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to put those in there. And this is really the big difference between doing a live webinar like this, where I can answer the questions. I got a whole room full of equipment here. So, some people, their workshop, this is at my home, their workshop has tools and stuff, which mine does, but also mine is filled with a bunch of network test equipment as well. So if there's some question you have about something, we could probably throw it together and take a quick look. So what we're going to be taking a look at today in this session is the NetAlly LinkRunner G2. So over here, I have my LinkRunner G2. So let's bring this over and let's just take a quick look at a couple of the things on that. I'll zoom in just a little bit. But up on top, we have our Ethernet port, and this supports 10100, 1000. It supports PoE up to 90 watts. We're going to take a look at what we can do as far as testing PoE. Plus, if we have this plugged into a PoE switch, this will charge the LinkRunner G2. So it's kind of nice. Once we get it charged, now if the battery's dead, it won't bring this link up and it won't charge. But once we're charged and we have PoE enabled, this will charge off the PoE port. We've got an SFP cage on this, and this supports 100/gig. So, for those of you that maybe still are running an industrial plant or you have some 100 meg fiber out there, you can stick 100 meg SFP in here, and that's going to work just fine. We have a Type A USB port up here. And I'm going to zoom in even more here, and I'll put the link in the chat window. But this is an Etamax N150 Wi-Fi Bluetooth adapter. And so if I buy one of these adapters, and they're about 12 bucks on Amazon, if I buy that adapter in there, what we find is that on our LinkRunner G2, we can connect to Wi-Fi. I'll have to see if I've got this connected up or not, but we can connect to Wi-Fi and we can connect Bluetooth devices. So we'll take a look at a few of the devices I've connected up to it. If we flip it around, we've got a micro SD slot in there. Now, here's the cool thing. This is an Android-based device. So being an Android-based device, we'll go the other way, I have things like a PDF reader. So what I've done is I've gone in and done things like a network discovery using my Etherscope or using my OneTouch, and I can put that in a PDF document. Now I can put network documentation on here. So I can use this as more than just a tester. It is a company-specific Android device. So I could put PDFs out there with reference information. In fact, I don't know if I have any on this one, but I've even put together little videos where it is in this form factor on training. So, this is how we do this, and we just put that right on the micro SD card. We've got a mini USB port right here, and today I've got that hooked up to a power mirror, which is going to be how I'm going to mirror this screen so you can see it. I've got volume up and down, I've got power, On the back side, I've got a camera and a flashlight. I've got a little Kensington slot, so if you're going to leave this out in a wiring closet or something, we can lock it up. And I've got a 3D printed stand. So the folks at NetAlly have put that stand out on Thingiverse. So if you have a LinkRunner G2 or an AirCheck G2, or we can do it with the, I'll show you, we've got one for the test accessory link sprinter, and there's also one for the Etherscope. You can print those yourself, or you can have a friend print those. It doesn't take too long to print them, and they make pretty nice little stands. Now, in addition, because I have the Bluetooth adapter connected up right there, this allows me to come in to do things like connect up my Microsoft Wedge Bluetooth keyboard. The touchscreen on here is great, but if I can connect up a Bluetooth keyboard to this, that means when I go in to type in comments, do other things, I can use the keyboard. Some things I'll show you today. I've got this little barcode scanner. It connects via Bluetooth. And I've got a Bluetooth Epson label printer. So we're going to look at how we can use some of these in conjunction with the Etherscope, or the, I'm so used to saying Etherscope, the LinkRunner G2. And we can use that. And also, I've been charging this up. This is a really nifty one. And even if you don't have a LinkRunner G2, this is the Air Console. And what this has a serial cable on this end. It's got a Wi-Fi radio in here, plus a Bluetooth adapter. We can plug this into this console port, serial port on a device, and then we can connect to this wirelessly. So I don't know about you, but the number of times I've had to wedge myself into some little wiring closet that, you open both doors up and you're trying to get into the switch. You plug that in and you go sit down somewhere as long as you're within range. It also has an Ethernet port on it, so we can take and plug into that Ethernet port and plug it into our wired network. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to come in here. We're going to copy this. Let's get that whole thing. I'm going to put this in the chat window. I'm going to make sure it goes out to everybody. So there is the link for the Wi-Fi adapter. And that is that Edimax Wi-Fi adapter. You can go out to Amazon. That thing's out there. I have one of those on every one of my LinkRunner G2s, because now I can go and connect that to my wireless network. So as I'm moving around, it's still connected to the Wi-Fi network. Okay? So we saw all the different things that we can connect to. So now let me go in, and I'm going to share my screen here. And let me make sure I share the right item. So I'm going to share the window right there for the Power Mirror. Now this is how we can go in and we can access this remotely. Now, one of these days, I hope to see that I could VNC into it like I can with the AirCheck G2 or the Etherscope NXG. But right now, through the USB port, that's the way I can go in and connect to that. So on your Zoom screen, you can change the size of the video window. So if I'm showing something on the video side of things, you want to make that a little bit bigger, that window can be changed in size. But here we have our LinkRunner G2. Now this is an Android device. So what's nice is not only can I use the NetAlly application for doing testing, but I can go out and I can use this to run other apps. In fact, if I drag this over, I have two windows to the right of the home screen, and I have two windows over here to the left of the home screen. And what we've got is we've got this green arrow right there. If we click on that, this brings up the App Store. So the App Store are applications that have been uploaded into the NetAlly App Store. These have been vetted, and I can download these and put them on there. So there are hundreds of applications out there. We even have Air Magnet Survey we can put on here. But I can put Angry Port Scanner, I can put all kinds of tools for going in and configuring devices. And if we come back, one of the things that I've got on here is I've got Magic iPerf. So the neat thing here is that I can load apps, like I can click on Magic iPerf, and this brings up this GUI-based iPerf interface. If I have an iPerf server running somewhere, like on one of my Linux boxes, I could just type in the commands and away I go. It supports iPerf 2, supports iPerf 3, and I'd done a webcast some time ago and somebody said, hey, can I run an iPerf from the air check to the LinkRunner G2? Absolutely. You could put this in server mode. You could use that in client mode, and you could run a throughput test between them. So what you find is that instead of carrying your phone around to connect to things, now we have this Android-based device that we can load apps up on there, and we could load, SSH terminals. Now, do you want to do a lot of work, write a whole bunch of bash scripts or something using this? Probably not. But if you're out in a wiring closet and you need to change the configuration of a port or something like that, how does it get any easier than being able to use that on there? So somebody said that link brings up a different adapter. Let me go check real quick. So this is, I said the box does say the N150, but this is the adapter right here that will work with that. And so and you'll notice that in the picture there, it does say N150 on the box. So that will work. That is the adapter. That's the one I bought and is plugged in there and is working with it. Okay, just wanted to check that. So now let's go ahead and jump over here. I can load apps up, and I can come in here. I can put apps on there. One of the things that I like to do with my LinkRunner G2 is I will put settings on there. So if I come in and click on this, on the apps, and I go to widgets, this shows me all these different widgets that I can load up. And one of the widgets out there is a settings shortcut. So if I click on the settings shortcut, and I say, you know what, I want to move that settings shortcut to my home screen right there, then it's going to say, what setting do you want to change? So I could come in and I could say, you know what, VPN. I want to put a VPN shortcut on there. So now the nice thing is that if I want to use this to VPN into my network or something, I just need to click on that. That's where I put the Wi-Fi shortcut. So now I could say, hey, you know what? Let's connect to Netgear 77. Yeah, let's try something here. We're going to unplug that adapter real quick. We're going to plug it back in. Maybe we'll take a look at that in the Wi-Fi troubleshooting in the next session. There we go. So I had to reset the adapter. Sometimes, we have to do those things. But now I am connected via the Wi-Fi adapter to my wireless network. So if I go out to do any updates, if I'm doing testing, it could be uploaded through there. So here's the cool thing. Let's say that you took your LinkRunner G2 out and you were testing a brand new network, and you wanted to make sure that you had connectivity and could get a DHCP address. But maybe that network can't reach the internet, so you can't upload your test results out to Link Live. What you could do is you could connect the Wi-Fi to your phone. So now it could go through your phone to upload those test results, even if the wired port is connected to a network that doesn't have internet access. Just gives us another way that we can have access out there to the internet. So let's come in, and we're going to start over here on switch. So if I come in here and I tap on the LinkRunner G2 application and I go into switch, what this is going to do is it's going to listen for CDP, LLDP, EDP, which is the Extreme Discovery Protocol, and FDP, the Foundry Discovery Protocol, which odds are you're probably not running that, but it will listen to that for that protocol. It's going to look at those packets. It's going to dissect those. It's going to tell us what we're connected to. So in this case, it's telling me that we're connected to Studio Switch 1, Netgear Gigabit Smart Switch. The IP address of that switch is 10.0.11.12, and we're connected to interface Gig 6. This alone makes this an incredibly valuable tool. Why? Because now I don't have to crawl underneath the desk, find out what port I'm connected to, go back, trace that cable down to a port, and try and figure out where that is. I was out at a customer site, and they had a switch that the wiring closet had gotten warm enough that all the labels came off the switch. Now, they weren't like, Brother or Epson type labels, or they were just a paper label someone stuck on there. But here's this whole pile of labels laying on the floor, and none of the switches have them. So we needed to connect into the switch. Well, nobody knew what the IP address was. So someone went running to go get a console cable. Do we need to do that? Nah. All we have to do is plug this in, and if we're sending out one of those protocols, we're going to be able to see which switch and which port we're connected to. Now, I have my switches here in my lab set up for DHCP, so I can move them easily from network to network. That means I never really know what the IP of that switch is going to be, unless I put in a DHCP reservation or something like that. So being able to plug into it, immediately being able to get that IP address, very handy feature. Now, the other thing right here is I see that it's telling me I'm linked. The switch is advertising 10, 100, 1000, half or full duplex, and we're connected at gig full. Now, as we progress through and we get to some of the cable testing, I'm going to grab out a test box I built that's got a bunch of cable problems. We're going to see that, let's say there was a problem with pin 7 on our Ethernet cable. We would only be able to connect at 100 meg, but it would tell us it's advertising gig. So if we see it's advertising gig, but we can only connect at 100, there's something wrong, and we need to go in and figure out what that is. Now, anytime we see this little action button right here, we could click on that, and it's going to go in and it's going to show us what our actions are for that screen. So in this case, I could say flash port. So one of my sons, his fraternity, they were having some networking problems, and he said, could you come up and just take a look at this? Sure. So I went up there, and all their switches were unmanaged. Nothing was labeled. Some people could connect, some people couldn't. So I went in and I wanted to trace the cable from the cable modem down in the basement up to their main switch. So because nothing was managed, I couldn't use CDP. But what I could do is I could turn on flash port. And so with the flash port, I could go in and see that there was a port that was flashing off and on a regular sequence. Once I saw that, I knew that was the cable I was interested in. Other times, if we have a device on the network that's doing CDP and we have one that's doing LLDP, this could become confused. It could see the CDP before it saw the LLDP. So as a result, we may look like we're connected to a phone when we're really connected to a switch. So that's where the refresh XDP comes in. In that case, if I hit that, it's going to re-listen for that packet. And that way we can use that as a way to say, hey, I don't think that's what I'm really connected to. Let's give that a try again and see what happens. And if I'm fired up about this stuff, it's probably because that's my third cup of coffee today. I got up early for webcast or online meetings today, so I'm well caffeinated. So really, the switch gives us a way that we could go in and get a good picture of what we're connected to. And some days, that's all we need. Other days, we need a lot more. So let's move over to AutoTest. AutoTest is where it really happens, right? So I'm going to hit refresh right here. So what it's doing is it's going to go out and it's going to establish a link on our copper port up here on the top, or on the fiber port if we have the SFP in there. Now what you'll see is if you connect via fiber, the link light will come on the copper port. So it shares that link light between an activity light between the copper and the fiber ports. So what does it tell us? It tells us the same thing as the switch, but if we expand that, we can see a little bit more information about what's being advertised right here. Now, one of the things that I really like in here is it shows me which VLANs have been seen on this port. So if you're going through and setting up switches, and especially if you're doing something like voice over IP, we want to make sure that all the VLANs that are supposed to be there are on there. And this is where the S word comes in. I know what some of you are thinking. It's not that S word. It's should. And too often, people use the word should. That should be connected there. That should be working. That should. We want to avoid the use of that word. We want to be definitive in what we say. We want to be able to measure and see what's going on. And that is where we can use this to make sure that we have the right VLANs. So right now, we're not using any VLAN tags, but we see that we have not only our native VLAN, but we have VLANs 10, 14, and 12 on this port as well. So that's a great way to see what VLANs are there. Here's my studio switch information. So it tells me the same information I saw on the switch screen, and I see that I discovered this using LLDP. Shows me my DHCP, so I can see, you know, the offer time. So my DHCP server waited 4.7 seconds. So I need to go back to that MikroTik router I'm using as my core router and make sure that that knows it's authoritative for this scope. Because if it's authoritative, we should get that response immediately. See, I even use that S word oftentimes. But this is a way I can measure. How long did it take to get that? Who gave me that DHCP address? Did somebody bring in a rogue DHCP device and start handing out 192.168.0 addresses? And we could see who handed that out and what my lease time is. My DNS information, see that DNS is responding. I get my default router, and it tells me what my public IP address is. And I'm capturing all the traffic going to and from that address. So if you think you're going to start playing around with that address doing something, I'm keeping an eye on everyone, okay? But in this case, I can do a continuous ping. So I can click on continuous. It's going to sit there and ping my router. So if I have questions about the connectivity to that, I could let this run for a while. Now, one of the things that we can do is if I come over here, and let's say that I saw I was missing packets, I can take the volume down and the power button, I can hit those at the same time, and I can do a screenshot. So now I could take a screenshot of what I saw. So if I saw some packet loss in here, I could grab that screenshot, and then I could send that to someone and say, hey, this is a problem right here. We're losing packets. It went out and tested a connection to Google, and then it uploaded the test results to Link Live. Now, if you're not using Link Live and you have a LinkRunner G2, you are missing out. And I'm going to show you where we can go into Link Live and take a look at these test results. But now, these test results have been uploaded to Link Live. And once I upload those to Link Live, I could come in here and I could say, hey, I want to add a comment. So I could come over to my keyboard and I could say studio. Oh, I hit the wrong key there. Let's come in here. Let's go back there. Oh, I wonder what key I hit on that keyboard. Well, we'll go ahead and run our test again there. And yeah, these live demos, they're always entertaining if nothing else. So we're going to let that continue to run there, get our information. And I'm just going to type it on the screen. We'll go ahead and say we're going to add a comment. And I'm going to click in that field, and it will bring up my keyboard here. There we go. So I'm going to say Studio 47. I don't know, something. I'll say OK. Now, in addition to being able to come in here and upload that comment, I could come in and say, I want to take a picture. And we'll grab, this is a picture I took previously with the camera on there. I'm going to grab that switch and I'm going to say, hey, let's upload that as well. So it's going to upload those on there. Now, one of the questions is uploading to Link Live the only way we can get the result? No, the results can be saved internally. They're a little more challenging to get to, but what we can do is I should put a short video together on that one. That's going to be a little bit outside of the scope of what I'm going to have time to go into today, but we could take a look at where that gets stored, what gets stored in there as far as those test results. But yes, You don't have to use Link Live. And I understand that there's a lot of organizations that would prefer not to take the information they're discovering on their network and shove that up to a cloud-based service. So we'll take a look at where we can turn Link Live off and on. So this is the basic test. In fact, since we've been, well, I'm going to wait till I share the whole screen. Then we'll come back to Link Live. So if I come up here, and here's some information about my organization, etc., my profile. And this is a big one, is that we can create profiles on here. So if I click on profile, here are a variety of different profiles I've created: VLAN 10, VLAN 14, our class PoE. So we're going to come back. We can store an unlimited number of profiles. These profiles, we're going to see, can have unique test targets. They can have unique settings. So if I go to a specific network, I could store a static IP address. I could store what test targets I want to test. So we could have application-specific test targets. For this particular device to work, we need to have access on these TCP ports to these devices. I could build a profile for that. So now I give this to a lower level technician. I say, load this profile and go run the test. If everything's green, we know that that device has access it needs. Now, if I want to change my settings, I'll click on settings, and we're going to turn on PoE because I'm connected to a PoE switch. Now, we see in here, I've got enable true power. Well, what's true power? Well, true power allows me to select the class of service I want to test. Now, class 8 is 90 watts at the power source, 71.3 watts at the power device. So this allows for our current to be dropped, our voltage to drop, which multiplied times the current is going to give us a lower wattage because of the resistance of that wire we're running through. One that I like, because I use a lot of these little micro-tick routers, it have power injectors. It's not like 802.11, or it's not 802.3 AF or ATPoE. It is a power injector. So in that case, it even supports an injector, and it will measure the voltage coming in on that Ethernet port. But for right now, I'm going to choose class 3. So what we're going to do is not only are we going to look at the unloaded PoE voltage, we're going to apply 13 watts of current draw. We're going to see what voltage and amperage we get out of there. And that's going to tell us, will this support that much wattage? So true power not only measures the unloaded voltage, but it applies a load and measures that. That will help us identify, do we have any issues with connectivity as far as resistance? One that we've found at trade shows before, copper-cladded aluminum wire. This can cause too much resistance. We don't get enough voltage out at the far end, and the PoE device doesn't work. So in this case, under connect, we could set our speed and duplex to auto, which I usually do, or we could force it. There are some environments where somebody, for whatever reason, has forced the speed and duplex. We can force it on here as well. This supports 802.1x authentication. I can bring the certificate in off of my micro SD card, and I can use that if I'm using a authentication that requires certificates. I could turn on IPv6. I could set my IP configuration. You may be on a network where you have to have a static IP address. I can set a static IP address. When I save that profile, that is saved in there with the profile. DHCP options. I can turn these options on, and it will show me the options. So I can say, hey, I want to see option 150, I want to see 43, I want to see 60. And for 60, I could say, this is what I'm expecting to see. So depending on if I'm using these options, I can validate whether those options are there. If I need to go through a proxy server to get out to the internet to upload my results, I could turn on the proxy server. And here is where I can start adding in test targets. So what do? Well, let's say that you have a device and I said, what ports need to be open for this device to operate? And somebody tells me, well, it should use these ports. Well, there they use the S word. So what do? I hop in line and I do a packet capture. And I'll show you how we can do the packet capture on here. And here's a really cool thing. Once I do the packet capture, I can upload that packet capture to Link Live so that I could do the capture, but I could have somebody else access Link Live and get in there. Now, I need to get in line. Well, one of the ways I can get in line is I can take something like my little Netgear GS105E and set up port mirroring on it. And I'll throw a link in here. I've got a video I put together on how to set this up. $45 switch that we can set up port mirroring. Now, is it perfect? No. Does it get the job done? Oh yeah. We plug this into the LinkRunner G2. Now I can do a packet capture, and this has a 1 gig packet capture. It'll capture at full line rate gig for up to a gigabyte worth of traffic. So I'm going to say add a target. So I could type in an address. I'll say 10.0.0.60. Okay, that's my network attached storage box. So does that use port 80? That does. But you know what? I don't use port 80 to transfer files. I use port 445. I'll say okay. So I'll come in. I could say, hey, you know what? I want to add another target. And I'll put in secure.emailserver.com. That's my email server. And for that, I use port 993. I'll say okay. And you know what? I want to add that again, but I don't want to take the time of typing that. So I'm going to say duplicate that one. I'll come in here and I'll say, let's change that to port 465. I'll say, okay. So now I've added some targets. So I can make sure that I have connectivity to the devices I need to talk to. Now, one of the things that I like in here is stop after. So let's say that we ran into a situation where we were just testing to see if we could get a DHCP address. I don't care about anything else. Or let's say you're an installer and you want to make sure that you get a link, and that is it. I want to make sure I can link at gig. I could set this to link, and as soon as it gets to there, boom, it stops. We go to the next one, go to the next one, go to the next one. And we can see where we connected. We can see that we connected. So we could set this. We're going to leave this at all today. We're going to go ahead and set the VLAN. Let's do this. We're going to do VLAN 10. So we're going to add a VLAN tag. We'll get everything all set up. We can put in a user-defined MAC. So why would I use a user-defined MAC? Well, let's say that I was doing a DHCP reservation for a piece of hardware that I couldn't easily see if it got the correct address. The more I can do ahead of time, the more likely we are to be successful. So if I can say, I know that that DHCP reservation's working and it can get to everything it needs to get to, now I can walk away and I can say I have the measurement showing that, not, no, that should work. I think I got that port hooked up right. So I could change the MAC address to the MAC address of the device that I'm going to be installing. Now, we want to make sure we switch it back later on, but great way to test DHCP reservations. So now we've really built a much more dynamic, bigger profile. And you notice up there next to default, there's an asterisk. That's because we've changed the default profile. So I'm going to say save as, and I'll say QS for quick start, and we'll say 0421. Okay, so I'll save that. So now I've changed the profile, I've done a save as, so now I've saved all of that information. So we're going to come back, we're going to click back here, we're going to let that rerun. All right, so now we see that we're receiving 46.7 volts DC from our switch, and we're drawing 13 watts. So we see that our unloaded voltage was 46.7, our loaded voltage was 45.9. Well, I am using these little thin 28 gauge patch cords. So we're going to see a higher resistance on those, and that's going to result in a little bit more of a voltage drop, tells us what pairs we're receiving that on. This supports PoE+, so we can use those 2 extra pairs. It'll show spare pair is being used. We'll come back here. We'll see that we are on VLAN 10. We connected on VLAN 10. We're connected to Studio Switch. And we see that we connected to our network attached storage, our mail server on both the ports we need, and the test results were uploaded to Link Live. So that gives me all that information about that connectivity. Now I'm going to go back to my email here. Okay, and I'll tell you what, let's stop sharing for a second. We're going to go back to share. We're going to grab that whole screen, because now I need the whole screen space to share there. And I will look in my email. And let's see. I'm going to find my Link Live. I went ahead and created a separate folder in here for all of the Link Live notifications I get. So now, because I've associated my email address with that device, I come in and it tells me, here are the test results. So these test results were emailed to me, and it tells me that everything worked. Now it says reply above the line to add a label. So there's a couple ways I can add a label in here. But I'm going to come in, I'm going to add a label. I'm going to say add comment. Comment, label, we're going to find are used synonymously. So I'm going to say Studio 47, same thing that I put in before. I'll say OK. So I get the email. I could respond to the email and see that. But let's come over here, and we're going to go into Link Live. All right, drag that over. So here's Link Live. Now in this case, we see that right here, there's that Studio 47 I put in. Tells me here's my LinkRunner, and here are my test results that I saw. Everything about my link tells me the VLAN, tells me I connected, all of this information, which is fantastic. I get all of that. And in this case, we see Studio 47, Studio 47. If we click on this one, and I come in, there's that picture. So let's say that I have a wall jack that's hard to get to, or I have an access point that's hidden somewhere. I could take a picture of it with the built-in camera on the LinkRunner G2. I could go in and I could store that. I could attach, we could drag a PDF, we could drag images, we could drag files and tie those in with this particular device. Now, the other thing that's nice is if I do a search and I say Studio, and I say it shows me everything that has Studio in it, and I see I have 2 test results that have Studio 47. So I can do this search and I can look for that. If you are consistent in using your LinkRunner G2 to test ports as you configure them, you will be able to develop a document that has the wall jack number, the office number, the cubicle number, the building number. You can add as many tags as you want. So I could go in and add labels, and I could say, I could just add a label in here from here that said Studio. So now if I do a search and I put in Studio, it's going to show me everything that has that label Studio in there. Oh, we're going to clear Studio 47. This is everyone that has Studio. So you want to be kind of specific about what you put in there. We can even put them in folders. And if you put a / in front, it's going to put it into a folder. Okay. Now, let's come back to this. There's a couple other things I want to show you. This time goes by so quickly. And then I've got the air check coming up right afterwards. It is a different meeting ID if you're using the air check. But I want to give, if you have any questions, good time to send those. I know lots of material. This is a quick start just to give you an overview. A few other things that we can do with this. I could come in and I could say, I want to do a packet capture. So I'm going to say capture, and we'll just set the file size to 1 meg. I'm going to hit start. We'll capture some frames. So now, out in the field, I use my little Netgear, or there's a variety of other little cheap taps that you can get that we could use to get in line and do some captures. So now I do my capture, and I hit stop, and I take a look at my captured files, and I see that we've got this capture file right here. So I can click on that. I could click on here, and I could say share. I could say I want to save to uploaded files. So it's going to take that trace file, and it's going to share that up to my uploaded files. And if we come back out to Link Live, and we go to our uploaded files, there's that capture right there. So I could come over here, and I could click on that capture, and I could download that capture to my machine. Now I could click on that. And there's that capture in Wireshark. So now I've got that capture out there. Okay? So this gives me a way that I could go in and do a packet capture with that as well. Now the last one on here that we're going to take a look at, we'll move out of capture. There's a VLAN monitor. I can use the VLAN monitor to listen to this port and see how many frames I see on each one of my VLANs. So if I have someone that's blasting out a lot of multicasts or broadcasts, and I don't have something like IGMP snooping turned on, I could use this as a way to hear, at least see who's sending all those frames out. So I got my little VLAN monitor. So the one other thing I want to show you real quick on here is my cable test. My cable test, we have 2 types of tests. We have terminated and unterminated. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a chunk of cable here. I've got a little cable. So I could take my LinkRunner, unplug it. We're going to plug it into our cable, and I am going to hit refresh. So that's going to run a test, and it's going to tell me that I am good, that this looks good. I'm running out there to 325 feet. So that's a pretty good chunk of cable right there. If I come in, I'll grab my case here that I put together with my tools in it. We can get these little terminators that we can put out here on the end. And now when I refresh that, what it's going to do is it's going to show me I'm connected to wire mapper number 4. So by knowing I'm connected to number 4, let's say you go into a facility where nobody documented the cabling. I can plug in my wire mappers, then I could go in and see which one I'm connected to and be able to map that out. Also, if the cable is broken clear out there at the end, so I'm going to grab my little test box here. My glasses on, easier to see. And we are going to plug into let me grab my test box that tells me what's wrong. I'm going to plug into, well, let's do this one. I'm going to plug into number 4. I just want to show you what the difference is here. So if I do an unterminated test, and this is a test where I don't have anything at the far end, we're going to do a refresh, and it says it's good, and it tells us how long the cable is. Now I'm going to plug a terminator in. I'm going to refresh that. Now you can do this with the wire map report on the side. This shows me that I've got a crossover here. Notice that unless we terminate it, we can't see that. That's because we don't have a way to map out the pins. All the pins are the same length. So, and if we went in and we did something like, let's take a look at one more. We'll do this one. Okay, so in this case, this one looks good. It tells us our wires are the same length there. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in and I'm going to plug in the wire mapper. We're going to run this one more time. We see that 7/8's broken. That's because it's broken at the far end. Now, if it were broken at the near end, we'll change that around. What do we see? Now, no wire mapper this time. This time we see it's open at 3 feet. So here's the thing. When we're doing things like wire mapping with this, if we're going to be able to detect that the far end is bad, we need to be able to terminate that far end, use something like one of these terminators or the wire mappers to do that. Otherwise, we can't really tell that that jack at the far end is good because all the conductors are pretty much the same length. If it's at the near end, we can. Now, we can do a screenshot of this. We could come in here, we could send a tone across there. So this works with the Fluke networks and Teletone, plus it works with analog toners. I could also do a screenshot. So if I saw that this was bad, and this is why I'm only getting 100 megabits per second, I could use this as a way to go in, take a screenshot of that, upload it with the test result, put a label in there with a problem ticket number, and then go and say, hey, I've updated that ticket. Here's the ticket number out there and link live so you can see where that's at. So this is a very, very quick overview of what we can do with the LinkRunner G2. It is a very powerful tool, and it's the kind of tool that having this in your bag and bringing it out and being able to run our tests, get our results, really important. So, since I have another webcast coming up here in just a few minutes, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and wrap this one up. And then that way I can kind of reset, grab the air check, and get ready for that one. I hope that this has been a good opportunity for you to see what some of the features are of the LinkRunner G2. We're going to be doing these every month. So every month I'm going to be going through and showing how we can use this. If you have other people in your organization that can benefit from this, please let them know. I'll add the new ones out there today. And one of the questions was, will we be sending a recorded session version? Yes. So I've had recording running. I am going to record this one. I'm not going to record each one of them, probably. I don't know. But I will send a recorded version of this out to everyone. You'll get an email tomorrow with a follow-up. And if you have any needs for training on how to go in and use this to a greater extent, integrate it into your organization, feel free to give me a call. And that is what I do. I do training on tools like this, on protocol analysis, and how to help you get to the root of your problems as quickly as possible. All right. Well, if you haven't signed up for either of the other two sessions, There is a link right there. So nps-llc.com/quick-starts. If you go out there, you can click on the other sessions, you can register, you'll get an email, and you can join into those. Love to see you in one of those sessions or both those sessions. We're going to kind of do a little marathon here. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and end this session right now. And we are going to get ready for the next one. And away we go. All right. So hopefully we'll see you in a few minutes. If not, maybe we'll see you back at another one of our webcasts. So thank you very much. We'll see you again.